So basically, the keynote 756 was a randomized phase 3 study with the purpose of demonstrating if adding immunotherapy to standard chemotherapy might add some efficacy for patients with high-risk hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative early breast cancer. So in brief, it's a placebo-controlled randomized phase 3 study comparing chemotherapy with paclitaxel followed by anthracycline-based therapy with placebo or with pembrolizumab in the neoadjuvant setting for patients with grade 3, stage 2 and stage 3, hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative breast cancer, followed by surgery. And after surgery, patients continue with standard of care endocrine therapy plus placebo or pembrolizumab up to 6 months. And the dual primary endpoints were pathological complete remission and event-free survival. It's important to highlight that stratification factors included different regions and PD-L1 status, nodal status, AC or EC every 2 or every 3 weeks, and also the levels of estrogen receptor, 1 to 9% or 10 or higher percent. Okay, so first of all, I would like to remind us the key results when Fatima Cardoso presented first last year the results of the study. The primary endpoint, the first co-primary endpoint, which was pathological complete remission, was achieved. Indeed, PCR was increased from 15.6% with chemotherapy alone to 24.3% when pembrolizumab was added to chemotherapy. So there was an absolute improvement of 8.5%, and it was highly statistical significance. It is true that when we looked at different PCR definitions, for example, those ones included in situ carcinoma or looking only the pathological complete response in the breast, also we have an improvement when pembrolizumab was added to chemotherapy. Also important to highlight that this benefit was exactly regardless all the different subgroups, but this was very, very significant in those patients whose tumors did have estrogen receptor between 1 and 9%. In this case, the absolute PCR benefit was more than 25%. So at EBCC 2024, we had also very interesting data. For example, we looked at the differences in PCR according to the age and the menopausal status. And regardless of these two groups, pembrolizumab benefited the same. Also, we analyzed something very important, the time to definite surgery and the time from surgery to starting adjuvant treatment. And which is very good news is that this time did not have any variation regardless if patients received pembrolizumab or not. In other words, so adding pembrolizumab to chemotherapy does not delay the time to surgery, and after surgery does not delay the start of adjuvant therapy. So that's very, very important when we discuss with our surgeons if we might have consequences in terms of surgery after administering immunotherapy. Well, in my opinion, this data has two important consequences. The first of them is for those tumors with estrogen receptor positivity between 1 and 9%. In the keynote 522, it was the similar study, but in the triple-negative breast cancer population, pembrolizumab achieved or demonstrated a nice improvement in PCR, but also in event-free survival, and pembrolizumab has been approved by the majority of agencies based on this data. However, based on the classical definition of triple-negative breast cancer, tumors should have hormone receptors less than 1%. We all know that those tumors with estrogen receptors between 1 and 9% behaves exactly the same as triple-negative breast cancer. But unfortunately, we did not have any data showing that immunotherapy might also improve outcomes in this patient population. So for the first time, we have demonstrated this in keynote 756. So in my opinion, for this group of patients, we have now enough evidence to support the use of pembrolizumab in the neoadjuvant setting. My second important point is that, in my opinion, we should not, or at least I think that for the great majority of patients, we are not ready to use pembrolizumab in the neoadjuvant setting on Monday morning. I think that we have to wait and see what happens with the second primary endpoint, which is event-free survival. And in case event-free survival is also increased, then pembrolizumab might become a standard of care for this group of patients. But at the time being, my opinion, for the low estrogen receptors, we should use it. For 10 or more, we have to wait and see. Well, I think that we have many more things to add before, after this study. The first one is one of the conclusions of the study that will help us to optimize next strategy is that immunotherapy seems to work also in the estrogen receptor positive patient population. So this is very important, because what we have to do is how to optimize, how to understand much better who are the patients who will benefit from immunotherapy and who are the patients who will not. And that's something that clearly we need more translational research. Also, can we combine immunotherapy with other drugs? For example, in this patient population, we know that CDK4 and 6 inhibitors are being approved in the adjuvant setting. Is it good to combine with immunotherapy to optimize outcomes? Or, for example, how can we optimize immunotherapy with the new antibody drug conjugates? Antibody conjugates are not approved in the metastatic disease, and it is likely that some of them will be approved also in the early breast cancer setting. So how can we combine both drugs to optimize outcomes? It's important to remember that although there are many patients who are going to be cured, there are a significant number of patients, basically luminal B tumors, that will experience progressive disease in the future. So we need more and better drugs. And I think that this is one of the new treatments that will give us some happiness in the future. Well, I think that I will congratulate the pharma company for being provocative, being aggressive, and exploring immunotherapy in this patient population. There was knowledge in the past that these tumors should not have any benefit from immunotherapy, and we have demonstrated for the first time that it seems they might have. So I think that all together have to work, moving in future directions, exploring not only clinical aspects but also translational research. It's very important to understand how to optimize immunotherapy and who are the patients, as I said before, who really benefit from immunotherapy. A lot of things to do, but I think that we have now a clear way to move forward.